Hello everyone, today I will be reviewing the Real Techniques Beauty Sponge. I spent roughly 3 weeks with this product before making this review. I sincerely hope that this review offers you guys an in-depth insight into the product. For this review, I put the Real Techniques Sponge through various tests with multiple products. These products include the Wet n Wild Photo Focus Foundation, the CoverGirl True Blend Matte Made Foundation, the HydraGuard 24% Silicone Blend Moisturizer, CoverGirl Professional Translucent Setting Powder, and yes, I said professional, LOL, and the Dollar Tree brand Sunscreen. These products are linked below if you're interested. You should also subscribe to my Patreon and get a behind-the-scenes look as well as specialized makeup plans and tips for your viewing pleasure. Before I apply any product, using this sponge, I need to wet the sponge. It's important to make your beauty sponge damp and not wet. If the sponge is too wet, the product will not apply correctly. Also, the sponge needs to be dampened with cool water. If hot or warm water is used, the sponge will become too porous and the products will apply patchy. The sunscreen will be tested first. I find that most sunscreens are generally the same, with maybe a few variations. I found this sunscreen at the Dollar Tree, and you can find it in the link in my description. Before applying, I will usually dampen my Real Techniques sponge using cool water, but today I'm going to use hot water. This is to increase the porosity of the sponge to better dilute the sunscreen. I will apply sunscreen to one half of my face using the Real Techniques sponge and the other half using my fingers. As you can see, there isn't really much of a difference between the two areas. So the beauty sponge really doesn't make a difference here. I would apply sunscreen with either my fingers or my sponge. Next, I will be applying the HydraGuard 24% Silicone Blend using the Real Techniques sponge. This is a moisturizer primer that I use for my makeup. The silicone helps prevent oil from seeping through my makeup. I will apply the remainder to my hands due to the fact this is not a water-based primer. It is incredibly difficult to blend. I would recommend applying a similar primer with your hands, letting it set, then applying your makeup directly to the sponge before stippling. Emphasis on stipple. You don't want to swipe, you don't want to rub, you want to stipple it. Otherwise, it will smear against the primer. As you can see, it looks a little bit patchy because I did apply it using a beauty sponge, which the Real Techniques sponge tends to be very soft, and I imagine with a harder sponge it would apply smoother because you do need to put pressure on this moisturizer for it to stick. Next, I'm going to be applying the CoverGirl Professional, I said professional again, Loose Translucent Setting Powder. I usually use the powder puff that was included with the setting powder, but for this video I'm going to be using the Real Techniques Beauty Sponge. I dampen my sponge first using cool water this time. What do you guys think of my nails, by the way? I was thinking about doing a nail video and then offering personalized nail plans to you guys on my Patreon, because as you know, I offer personalized makeup tutorials and Skype sessions for my Angel Patreon subscribers. Definitely worth checking out in my description. Anyway, so I'm going to take the pointed end and apply it to my face as you would if you were to set your makeup. Sorry about being off camera, you guys. I did not notice this until after I had finished filming. Please forgive me. Don't pay any attention to the bad angles. Anyway, the sponge does apply. I'm not really a big fan of applying a loose setting powder with a sponge. I find that it tends to be more patchy. But in all honesty, when I use the right side of my face with the Real Techniques sponge and the left side with a powder puff, they seem to apply almost identical, but if you look closely enough, you'll see that the powder puff actually applies a more faded very attractive finish to the loose setting powder. Also, when you're applying it with the damp beauty sponge, the loose setting powder tends to shift the makeup that you have on top of it because it's wet. It is really only good for when you're baking your face after you've contoured, highlighted, and before you've applied your blush and your highlighter. Because once the blush and the highlighter have been applied, the loose setting powder will actually cause those to shift, moving either too close to your eye area or too far down your cheek. Like I said, I'm going to be applying the loose setting powder with the Real Technique sponge on my right side, and I'm going to be using the left side, applying it on the left side using the powder puff. As you can see, there's really not much of a difference, as I stated earlier, except for the fact that it's more densely packed on when you use the powder puff, and this is most likely because it's dry. And there are a little bit more patches in the area with the powder puff. Again, this is probably because it's dry. It's more smooth with the Beauty Blender, as you can see on my right side. Be sure to like and subscribe, guys, if you enjoyed this video. Next, I'm going to be testing the Real Technique sponge with the Wet n Wild Photo Focus Foundation. This foundation is literally perfect for doing Instagram-worthy photos and videos. It shows up great on camera, makes you look matte and poreless, and doesn't appear cakey. It's literally my go-to foundation. Link in the description, you guys. So I'm going to be doing half of my face with the Real Technique sponge, and the other half of my face with, well, actually I think I do my whole face. Yes, I do my whole face with the Real Technique. Sorry about that, guys. And as you can see, it's often, when I watch videos about the review on this product, many people complain that it takes away the coverage. Well, it does take away the coverage, but only if you don't apply the product directly to your face and then blend it. And not really swipe, but as you can see, I'm stippling it. I'm not swiping, I'm stippling, like pressing and pulling, but doing it gently and deliberately, because if you don't, the product will leave your skin. Next, I'm going to be, sorry you guys, swatching the Real Technique sponge with the CoverGirl True Blend Matte Made Foundation. When I first rated this on my IGTV channel, I only gave it 2 out of 5 stars, but I think I'm going to go back on that. It's actually more of a 3.5 star product. It's not the best for camera angles and for videos, but it does look good in person, and it does keep you more matte than the Wet n Wild Photo Focus, which does tend to make you a little shiny over time and does need to be set. This one almost never needs to be set. As you can see, this foundation is also a more full coverage foundation than the Wet n Wild, which appears more of a natural coverage. Literally, my skin, while it matches my skin color, it almost looks like I'm wearing a mask over my face. That's just how much coverage this foundation offers. You should definitely check it out, by the way. It's in the link in my description. Again, sorry about the camera angle, guys. Overall, I really enjoyed this sponge. I didn't swatch it with the Beauty Blender because I don't believe in comparing one sponge to another. They're each different in their own way, but at the same time, they're good and unique. The Beauty Blender might be a bit firmer, but the Real Technique sponge conforms to the shape of your face and prevents too much product buildup. If you're interested in more of a natural coverage, I would definitely go for this sponge. It will also be linked in my description. Until next time, guys, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe.